Hello and welcome to Warblog. This is a development video for in progress for air combat, or the other side of air units. I've had air units for a while, so I'm using this game just because it's got some air units in it. So let's go to the Iraq turn. For some reason everything's slow. That's what you get from a brand new computer. Right, so you should be able to spot the air power. So what we have is some UK Tornadoes and some USAF Fairchild Republic A10 Thunderbolt 2s. Now they just sit there, and ordinarily we can use them for air strikes, which works. Now this box here is the cap box, which is counter air patrol. Now we don't the ISIL forces don't have any air power, so it's sort of irrelevant really. But I haven't got the sort of the air combat system in place yet. This was tricky enough as it is, to be quite honest. Maybe it just doesn't look like much. The rest will be a little simpler. Moving these things around is difficult. But anyway, so if I want to put something on, at the moment, this guy has 8 movement. Now the movement is a bit faffy, to be quite honest. But if I want to put this guy, well, let's put this Tornado on counter air patrol. That means what he's going to do, so he's now in that box. If I reload this page to get the headers back, transferring the headers is a bit of a problem, but you can see that he's got 10 movement. This guy has 8. So he's now in counter air patrol. Now I can move him back. He's not committed there. So I can move them around. I can move them both in there if I want. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to use that for, as you can see, neither of them now have their headers. When you move units around, you've got to either rebuild them or reload them. When I say rebuild them, I've got to make the code do that, and it's a lot of hassle, so I haven't done it yet. And that's one of the things I might not get around to for a long time. But anyway, so now I end the turn, and what we now have is the counter air box still active. This means that my unit is still on counter air patrol. Now, if the ISIL units had any air power, maybe I should have chosen one that had actually other air units, but if the ISIL unit had any air power, they would have 2 choices. They could either try and strike my units on the field, in which case when they did it, they would then be transferred to another box where we'd have to fight this Tornado. Alternatively, they can go direct to fight it. Same difference really, to be quite honest. I'm not sure whether there would be much point in differentiating the two. But you can't, in order to carry out a ground attack, you have to have occupied the counter air patrols. And the counter air patrols will, I'm not sure exactly how they will work, but basically they will stay there. So you can't engage the counter air patrols with a bunch of units and then when they've all finished go in with some other units. The counter air patrols will stay there. I'm sort of making that rule up as I go along, but I have thought about this before and I can never remember what I decided. But essentially, for example, you could sacrifice one unit to occupy the counter air patrol, and then go in with your other aircraft. Well, maybe that would be fair enough. Maybe giving the counter air patrol unlimited attacks is a bit much. So I don't know. I haven't written it yet, but basically you will be given a screen where you will see everything that's in the counter air patrol box versus on one side, like down there, and then everything everything that you've got, and then you would tick what you want to do the battle, and then depending on what's left, then you can sort of carry on as normal. I think that the whole idea would be that you will gain air superiority one way or the other. One side will gain air superiority. Now, let's suppose that now I'm in counter air patrol here, and ISIL don't send up their aircraft to take it out. They will end their turn. This is where it gets a bit rusty. Yeah. So now he is now on. It's a bit odd, really, because if you actually look at this, it's supposed to be at 9, but that makes sense because we did it last turn, and he's now at 9.5. So essentially, there's a cost of half a movement, and in this, when it comes down to aircraft, movement is basically a sortie. They don't have movement in the sort of traditional sense of moving across hexes. So he had 10 movement points, which was basically 10 sorties. He could have flown around for 10 times. So putting it into counter air patrol is cheaper, and so you can do more. But obviously, you're just sitting there wasting your resources. If when you could have had 10 ground attacks, committing it to 20, counter air patrols could be seen as a waste. Now I might change that to something like 0.4 every time, or 0.3, or something. I don't know, something to sort of balance it out. But there is a benefit. I mean, obviously, if you put in significant resources into counter air patrol, you're essentially protecting your airspace. If someone then can't go and do ground attacks, so the fact that they don't engage you and you just sit there doing nothing, if you can deny them the ability to use airspace, then that's sort of something else, really. So that's pretty much it. We'll just go through the sort of turn sequence again. So he was at 9.5. So this is ISIL now ending their turn. We can see now that he's still in counter air patrol, and now he's at 9. Let's say we want to move him out now. So we can move him back into there. And doing nothing means you don't use your air sorties. One other justification that I've had in my mind. So as you can see, the ISIL turn now has no counter air patrol against them, so they could fly their planes freely if they so chose. 9, 8. Yeah, I thought it was 8. I was going to try and think of some reason why that was 8. But obviously I'd be lying because it was 9. So that's pretty much it, really. As I say, I've yet to sort of get the air combat in play, and to be quite honest, I don't know whether or not I will allow them unlimited. What I don't want to do is to have an opponent use a token force. The thing is, if you do use a token force, you're going to lose it a lot more readily. The other thing about the combat will be that I mean, these units do have depression factors just like everything else, and so if you go into for example, here it's got 0 depressions. If you went into an a counter-air patrol, an air superiority match, you might not kill, you might not reduce you might not kill the other counters necessarily. You might just do 5 damage. So it works in the same way as disruptions do with regular units. So if they were 50% depressed, they would only be worth 2.5. The first one is the yeah. To be quite honest, he can't do air superiority because he's 0. I'll have to sort of rack my brains to see whether I'm correct. But basically, the first one is a sort of the bombing strength, and this is an A10. It just carries bombs, although it can shoot machine guns and things. In here, it's got 0, so sort of giving it a bomber role. Going forward, I already have the classifications, but there will be bombers, fighters, and helicopters. These are the sort of 3 things. So the bombers will be the things that fly at sort of 30,000 feet. The fighters are sort of pretty fast, but almost at ground level, and up to 30, whatever sort of heights they go up to provide protection for bombers and things like that. But basically, they're sort of intermediate. And the helicopters are obviously much lower and slower. And the whole point of doing 3 things like that is to is essentially to separate them out so that they can be countered with air defense measures. So you've got your AA guns, which will probably take out helicopters quite easily, a little more challenging against the fighters, and no chance against the bombers. And then you'll have your the air defense missile systems. They will be pretty good against helicopters, pretty good against the fighters, but not so good against the bombers. And there will be rockets, air defense rockets, so missiles, rockets, and AA, just anti-aircraft guns, flak. So but that's sort of not really got anything to do with the air combat system that I'm talking about here. That's just something else. But it will all sort of fit together. So before you start to fly your bombers, you're going to want to have air superiority if the other side has air power. I'm quite excited by it. It's a bit faffy. I really want to sort of try and get it right. It's one of these things that's quite complex and quite involved, and getting the balance right is going to be a challenge. But I think once it's done, what I'm tempted to do, hopefully if I can do it, is to create a scenario that is pretty much just air power, or where air power is a major factor. I mean, for example, the India-Pakistan war over Bangladesh, East Pakistan. I've done that scenario. I haven't done it very well, I know, but air power was a big factor because Pakistan basically tried to take out all of India's air power, but they only flew about 30 sorties and then they sort of stopped and they didn't really do the job at all. And so India then got all its aircraft off the ground because it hadn't suffered a great deal, and destroyed the Pakistan Air Force, which is ironic because the Pakistan Air Force was intended to destroy the Indian Air Force, and they gained air superiority and basically won the war. Won the battle. Well, won the war, a very short war, but so something like that might be a game where the focus then becomes on the air power and the air units, and I think there are quite a few games where that's sort of the factor. I mean, for example, in the Falklands War, it might be interesting to see how that all works out. So it's not going to be a case of just having a single match and all your air power, you will either win and kill everyone else and gain air superiority or lose. It will be a slow attrition of, you'll take a few depressions here and there. Over time you'll start to get defender eliminated, reducing the units, and so it'll take a while, but should be interesting. So that's the direction the game's going forward. Hopefully I'll get the rest of the stuff done shortly, but at the moment it doesn't actually do anything, but the intention's there. Speak to you later. Cheers, mate.